The Paradise Protocol. The Galactic Classification Council vessel Eternal Harmony drifted silently in orbit around the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Senior Assessor Vexlera stood before the main viewport, all four of her eyes fixed on the blue-green world rotating below. Her crystalline exoskeleton glimmered under the soft lighting of the bridge as she processed the initial sensor readings. "Remarkable," she whispered, mandibles clicking softly. "Simply remarkable." Chief Scientist Troll approached, his gelatinous form rippling with excitement. "The readings are unprecedented, Senior Assessor. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, abundant liquid water, moderate temperature ranges, stable tectonics. According to our classification protocol. A paradise world." Vexlera finished, her voice filled with reverent awe. "The seventh we've discovered in over 2,000 cycles of exploration. Paradise worlds were the rarest jewels in the galaxy, planets where virtually any species could thrive without protective measures. Such discoveries brought enormous prestige to assessment teams and lucrative settlement rights to their governments. The native species appears to be pre-warp," noted Security Director Mazril, his scaled skin shifting from blue to green with interest. "Bipedal mammals with rudimentary technology. Curious that they've advanced so slowly in such an ideal environment." "Prepare a ground team," Vexlera ordered. "Standard first contact protocols. We'll establish a research outpost in a remote region to study the natives before formal introduction." Within hours, the assessment team descended to the planet's surface in a region the natives called New Zealand. The landing site was selected for its isolation and diverse biosphere, perfect for collecting preliminary samples. Biologist Kindler was the first to step onto Earth's soil. She removed her helmet, following standard procedure for breathable atmospheres, and inhaled deeply. "The air is sweet," she noted in her recording. "Slightly higher oxygen content than our baseline. Atmospheric toxin filters show negative results." The 12-member team spread out, collecting soil, plant, and water samples. Everything proceeded according to standard procedure until Kindler approached a flowering bush with bright yellow blooms. "Fascinating pigmentation," she murmured, reaching out to collect a petal sample. The reaction was immediate and horrifying. Within seconds of touching the plant, Kindler's breathing became labored. Her skin, normally a healthy purple, began to mottle with gray patches. "Medical emergency," shouted Mazril, rushing to her side. "Kindler is in distress." Before the team's medical officer could reach her, Kindler's throat had swollen shut. Despite emergency treatment with their most advanced medical technology, she died within minutes. The team was stunned into silence. How could a simple plant on a paradise world cause such a reaction? "This is impossible," whispered Medical Officer Jor. "Our scans showed no toxins." Before they could recover from the shock, Communications Specialist Freen began coughing violently. "Something's wrong," he gasped, clutching his chest. I can't breathe." 2 more team members collapsed within the hour. As the team struggled to understand what was happening, they noticed something extraordinary. A group of native humans wandered nearby, completely unaffected by the plant life and air that was killing the visitors. "This makes no sense," Jor said, desperately trying to save Vreen's life. "Their physiology isn't that different from our baseline models. They should be affected by these toxins too." When a small flying insect landed on Security Director Mazril's arm and bit him, no one thought much of it, until his arm swelled to twice its normal size and his cardiovascular system began shutting down. "Evacuate immediately," ordered Deputy Assessor Linth, who had taken command after Vexlera herself had begun showing symptoms of respiratory distress. "Something is catastrophically wrong with this world." By the time they managed to return to the Eternal Harmony, half the landing team was dead or dying. In the safety of the ship's medical bay, the survivors struggled to understand what had happened. "Our readings can't be wrong," insisted Trull, reviewing the data for the 20th time. "By every measure in our classification system, this planet is a paradise world." Vexillera, recovering slowly under intensive care, had a disturbing realization. What if our classification system is fundamentally flawed? What if paradise for one species is deadly for another? Through the ship's monitoring systems, they watched humans on the planet below going about their daily lives. Children played among the same plants that had killed Kinlar. Adults breathed deeply of the air that had suffocated Vreen. A woman casually swatted away the same type of insect that had nearly killed Mazril. The humans, Vexillera said quietly. They don't just survive here, they thrive. Which means Trell's gelatinous form pulsed with anxiety. They evolved on what should, by any reasonable standard, be classified as a death world, Vexillera concluded, and they consider it normal. The implication sent a wave of unease through the surviving crew. Death worlds were rare planets so hostile that only the most aggressive and resilient life forms could evolve there. Species from such worlds were typically considered too dangerous for integration into the galactic community. Send an emergency transmission to the Council, Vexillera ordered. Earth requires immediate quarantine and reclassification. This is no paradise world, at least not for anyone but humans. 6 months later, Professor Kazora studied the human subject through triple-layered observation glass. Despite the climate-controlled environment of the research station, the xenobiologist's feathers stood on end, a sign of stress in her species. The human, a researcher named Dr. James Chen, sat comfortably in the examination room, sipping from a steaming cup. "What did you call that beverage again?" Kazora asked through the communication system. "Coffee," James replied with a smile. "Would you like to try some?" Research assistant Nixel checked her instruments and gasped. "Professor, that liquid contains high levels of methylxanthine alkaloids. They're neurotoxins." "Yes," James nodded casually. "About 95 milligrams in this cup. Helps me wake up in the morning." Kazora and Nixel exchanged alarmed glances. The compounds in the coffee would cause fatal seizures in most council species, yet humans consumed it daily for pleasure. "And you said this is merely a mild stimulant for humans?" Kazora confirmed carefully. "Exactly," James said. "Some people drink 5 or 6 cups a day. I usually stick to 2. Nixel made rapid notes on her tablet. This was just the latest in a growing list of human anomalies that defied explanation. Yesterday, they had observed humans eating foods containing capsaicin, a chemical that triggered intense pain receptors. The humans called these foods spicy and appeared to enjoy the burning sensation. Their pain response system seems rewired for pleasure in certain contexts, Nixel had noted in her report. In a nearby research room, biologist Telner was documenting another baffling human practice. "You deliberately expose your skin to solar radiation." Telmar asked a human woman who was explaining the concept of sunbathing. "Yes, it helps our bodies produce vitamin D," she answered. "Plus, many humans enjoy having tanned skin, even though this causes cellular damage at the DNA level." Telnar couldn't hide his shock. "Well, that's why we use sunscreen," she replied, as if that explained everything. At Galactic Council headquarters, Admiral Jor reviewed these findings with growing concern. The initial classification of Earth as a paradise world had clearly been a catastrophic error. But what category could possibly fit a planet where the dominant species voluntarily consumed toxins and radiation for pleasure? "Show me the recreational activities report," he ordered his assistant. The holographic display filled with images that made Admiral Jor's protective scales bristle. Humans jumping from high places with fabric parachutes, diving into deep water with minimal breathing equipment, climbing frozen mountains without environmental suits, racing at high speeds in metal vehicles. "They call this fun?" he asked incredulously. "Yes, Admiral. And these activities cause thousands of human deaths annually, yet they continue them without hesitation." Admiral Jor closed the file, his primary heart racing uncomfortably. Their entire planet is filled with dangers, microorganisms, weather extremes, predatory animals, tectonic instability causing earthquakes. How do they survive it all? Their medical records suggest they're incredibly resilient, his assistant replied. Broken bones heal, torn skin repairs itself. They recover from most viral and bacterial infections without medical intervention. They are remarkably durable. The debate about Earth's classification grew heated. Some council members insisted it must be designated a Deathworld, a planet so hostile that only the most aggressive life forms could evolve there. Others argued Earth deserved its own unique category. The term human-type world began appearing in scientific journals. The real shock came when the first human delegation arrived at Central Station. Wearing minimal protective gear, they moved confidently through environments that council engineers had considered perfectly safe for all species, yet these environments presented countless dangers to humans. At one point, a human diplomat named Dr. Sarah Reyes casually picked up a decorative crystal that contained trace elements toxic to humans. Several council members gasped in horror. "I'm sorry," Sarah said, putting the crystal down. "Is this valuable or restricted?" "It's radiating elements that should be burning your skin," whispered Ambassador Lorth. Sarah looked at her hand and shrugged. "Feels fine to me." In their assigned quarters, the humans complained about the temperature, too cold, the gravity, too light, and the air, too thin. The very conditions that most council species found ideal were uncomfortable for humans. They evolved on a death world, Security Director Mesril concluded in his report. But they don't know it. They think their lethal environment is normal. This realization sent waves of unease through council leadership. If humans considered Earth hospitable, what did that suggest about their physical capabilities, their potential threat level? Earth must be immediately reclassified, Admiral Jor announced. Category 5 Death World, pending further study. All contact with humans must be approached with extreme caution until we better understand their capabilities. That evening, as Professor Kazora prepared to end her observation shift, she noticed James Chen opening a small container. "What's that?" she asked. "Chocolate," James replied, breaking off a piece. "Want some? It's delicious." Kazora checked her scanner. The food contained theobromine, another compound toxic to most council species. "No, thank you," she replied politely, hiding her horror. "Perhaps another time." As James happily consumed what would be poison to her, Professor Kazora wondered what other surprises these remarkable humans might reveal, and whether the galaxy was truly ready for them. Deathworlders Ascendant. "I still don't understand why everyone seems so nervous around us," Human Ambassador Elena Vega said, stretching comfortably in the low-gravity lounge of Proxima Station. The artificial lighting cast a soft blue glow across her face as she casually adjusted to an environment that would have caused severe muscle atrophy in her species over extended periods. Ambassador Xin Taller of the Norillian Confederation watched with poorly concealed alarm as Elena reached out and touched a decorative railing with her bare hand. "Please use protective gloves," Ambassador Vega, Xin Taller urged. "That alloy contains trace elements of kelvium that could cause cellular disruption in organic tissue." Elena pulled her hand back, examining her unmarked skin with confusion. "Sorry about that. It feels perfectly fine to me." 1 year had passed since the Galactic Council formally reclassified Earth as a Category 5 death world. The decision had caused diplomatic chaos. Humans were shocked and offended by the designation, while many council species demanded Earth be quarantined entirely. After months of debate, a limited exchange program had been approved. 50 human students and diplomats now lived and studied on various council worlds, while a similar number of exceptionally brave alien researchers endured Earth's harsh conditions from within heavily shielded environmental habitats. The results of this exchange were troubling. Human participants not only survived on worlds classified as challenging by council standards, they thrived. Meanwhile, despite extensive protective measures, every alien researcher on Earth required regular medical intervention. "Have you reviewed the latest report from Earth Station?" Xin Taller asked, settling into a chair specially designed to support his elongated spine. "The one about your researcher who developed a severe allergic reaction after being exposed to tree pollen." Elena nodded. "Unfortunate, but these things happen with interspecies contact." Xin Towler's voice lowered. "That was the 6th severe reaction this month. 3 researchers have already requested emergency evacuation." Before Elena could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A computerized voice calmly announced, "Warning. Pressure loss detected in Section 17. All personnel evacuate immediately." Xin Towler's skin paled to a ghostly white. "That's the human engineering section." Both ambassadors rushed toward the emergency area. Council security officers had already sealed off the corridor leading to Section 17. Through the viewport, they could see that part of the outer wall had failed. The room was exposed to the vacuum of space. "Is anyone inside?" Elena demanded, her voice tight with concern. Human engineer Carlos Rodriguez was working alone. A security officer replied grimly. "We've lost contact. Rescue teams are suiting up now." Elena's face hardened. "How long since the breach?" "Almost 3 minutes." Xin Towler placed a comforting hand on Elena's shoulder. "I'm sorry. No sentient could survive that long in vacuum." Just then, the emergency airlock at the far end of Section 17 activated. Everyone watched in disbelief as Carlos Rodriguez dragged himself into the small chamber. His face was swollen and blotched with purple marks. Ice crystals clung to his hair, but he was conscious enough to activate the repressurization sequence. "Impossible," whispered Xin Towler. 4 hours later, in the medical bay, Rodriguez sat upright on an examination table while council doctors studied him with a mixture of horror and fascination. "You should be dead," stated Chief Medical Officer Varn bluntly. Rodriguez winced as he shrugged. "Vacuum exposure protocol. We're trained to exhale completely, protect the eyes, and stay calm. The human body can handle about 90 seconds without permanent damage. I pushed it to almost 3 minutes." "You were trained for this?" Xin Towler asked incredulously. "Basic safety for space work," Rodriguez replied. "Doesn't everyone do that?" That evening, Security Director Mesril called an emergency meeting with Admiral Jor. "The vacuum incident changes everything," Mesril said, pacing the secure conference room. "These humans aren't just hardy. They're practically indestructible by our standards." Admiral Jor studied the medical report. Multiple burst blood vessels, tissue swelling, partial lung collapse, and Rodriguez had walked away from it with only minor treatments. "With all due respect, Admiral, we need to reconsider the exchange program," Mesril continued. "What if humans aren't the peaceful species they appear to be?" "You're suggesting they pose a threat?" Jor asked carefully. "I'm suggesting that any species evolved to survive on a Deathworld possesses inherent advantages in conflict scenarios. They recover from injuries that would kill us. They tolerate environmental conditions that would incapacitate our strongest warriors. They've shown no hostile intentions," Jor reminded him. "Not yet," Mesril agreed, "but history teaches us to prepare for all possibilities." Later that week, Senate psychologist Lyra interviewed dozens of human exchange students. Her conclusion troubled the council even further. "They truly don't realize how extraordinary they are," she reported. "To them, we seem impossibly fragile. They treat us like delicate crystal figurines that might shatter at any moment." One human student had summarized it perfectly. "It's like you evolved in perfect safety while we evolved surrounded by things trying to kill us." Meanwhile, on Earth, Council Observer Nevik reported from his hermetically sealed habitat in the region called Australia. "Today I witnessed a human child fall from a considerable height, sustain a bleeding wound, cry briefly, then continue playing. The parent applied minimal first aid and showed no particular concern. This resilience appears entirely normal for the species." As reports continued flowing from both sides of the exchange program, the Council quietly began developing new protocols for human interaction. Military strategists ran simulations assuming humans as both allies and potential adversaries. They don't even realize they're terrifying, Ambassador Ixin confided to Admiral Jor after another meeting with Elena Vega. And somehow, that makes them even more frightening. The situation reached a critical point 3 months later when the hive mind of Sector 8, a hostile collective consciousness that had been slowly expanding its territory, launched a surprise attack on Outpost Gamma 9. The outpost, located on a frozen moon with surface temperatures of -180 degrees Celsius, was considered so naturally hostile that it had minimal defensive systems. The 4 Council species staffing the outpost were immediately incapacitated when the hive mind's forces breached their environmental systems. However, the 6 human researchers on site not only survived the temperature drop, but managed to repair the critical systems while fighting off the invaders. "We had about 20 minutes before frostbite would set in," explained Captain Maya Wong in her report. "Plenty of time to rig the backup generators and seal the breaches." The Council was stunned. What had been anticipated as a total loss of life became a surprising victory, with all personnel, human and non-human, surviving the attack. Admiral Jor faced a difficult decision. The hive mind's expansion had been a growing concern for decades, but its forces thrived in environments that were lethal to most Council species. Traditional military strategies had proven ineffective. "We need the humans," he finally admitted to the Council's inner circle. "They can operate in environments where our forces cannot." "Are you suggesting an alliance?" asked Elder Vex, her ancient eyes narrowing with concern. "With Deathworld species?" "I'm suggesting we reconsider our classification system entirely," Jor replied. "We've been wrong about humans from the beginning. We saw their resilience as a threat rather than an asset." The debate lasted weeks, but reality forced the Council's hand. When the hive mind attacked 3 more outposts in rapid succession, only those with human personnel survived. 6 months later, the first Joint Human Council Defense Force was established. Training proved challenging. Council species required extensive protective gear to participate in exercises that humans considered routine. But the results were undeniable. The combined force repelled hive mind incursions with unprecedented success. "You were afraid of us," Elena Vega said to Ixin as they watched human and Norillian troops training together on a holographic display. "Now you're counting on us." "We still fear you," Ixin admitted, "but we're learning to see that as our limitation, not yours." The most dramatic shift came when Council scientists, working alongside human researchers, made a startling discovery in ancient archives. The galaxy had once been home to many species from high-gravity, high-radiation worlds similar to Earth, species with resilience comparable to humans. These Deathworlders had served as guardians against threats like the hive mind for millennia. "What happened to them?" Admiral Jor asked when presented with this information. "They were systematically isolated and eventually died out," explained the lead researcher. Previous iterations of the Council feared their potential for violence more than they valued their potential for protection. The parallels were unmistakable. Had the current Council continued down the same path, humanity might have faced a similar fate. In a historic ceremony marking 2 years since Earth's reclassification, the Galactic Council formally established the Guardian Protocol. Earth was redesignated as a Class 1 resilient world, acknowledging both its dangers and the extraordinary capabilities of its native species. "We no longer see your world as uninhabitable," Elder Vex announced to the assembled human representatives. "We see it as the crucible that forged the protectors the galaxy has long needed." Ambassador Elena Vega accepted the new classification with dignity. "We never thought of ourselves as special," she said. "We just called our world home. Now we understand that our home made us unique in ways we never imagined." As humans took their place among the Council species, integration remained challenging. Cultural misunderstandings abounded. Humans still consumed their beloved toxins, exposed themselves to radiation for aesthetic purposes, and engaged in recreational activities that horrified their alien colleagues. But when the hive mind launched its largest offensive yet, those same alien species found themselves grateful for the strange creatures from that distant Deathworld who had evolved to survive, even thrive, under conditions that would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy. "They called our world uninhabitable," Captain Wong remarked to her mixed-species crew as they prepared to defend yet another outpost. "We just called it home. And now, we're making the galaxy a little more like home for everyone, a place where all of us can survive together." Admiral Jor, watching the defense unfold from Council headquarters, finally understood the true lesson of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. It wasn't just that humans were extraordinarily resilient. It was that their resilience had purpose. They had evolved not just to survive their harsh world, but to protect others who couldn't. Perhaps, he mused to his staff, what makes a world truly inhabitable isn't the absence of danger, but the presence of those willing to face it on behalf of others. And with that realization, the galaxy entered a new era, one where the former Deathworld and its remarkable inhabitants became not a threat to be feared, but guardians to be valued.